And welcome. Get the Rumble sign going. First, let's pause my little preview window. I don't need that. Rumble sign going. Alrighty. Everything's up and running. We are live. Not sure if there's anybody even out there, but looks like interesting. 6 people on the Rumble side. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Trying to bring some just normal average content to Rumble. It's my mission. Some boring old stuff. Right. We are going to dive into this is another vintage engineering development stream. It's been a few months since I've really done these a lot. But yeah, with the mod, like it's gotten a little bit more popular since it's been, fully usable and stuff. And I've been fixing bugs, and I added a whole like help system. So there's like 5 different guides that you can access in the handbook that kind of help add a little bit more detail to the mod, some of its features and progression stuff like that. So hopefully it's helping people um, get into the mod a little bit more. But we've got a couple things to work on here. Um, a contributor, Len, has submitted a pull request that I just merged, and um, this adds a way of integrating the mechanical power of the base game into the mod. So there's an alternator block that generates power via the mechanical system, and there's a motor that then goes the other way, turns the electrical power into mechanical power. So, um, so you can go both ways. It's by his words, it's not 100%. Like it's working, but it's not polished. Um, so I just wanted to review the code really quick. We're on a different branch now. Because I've gotten a few more contributors to the mod now. I've changed the branch, so now the main branch was turned into release, and the release branch is the one that's basically released to the public, right? The release branch is the public facing one. So if there needs to be a bug fix or something emergency happening with that, that's the branch that I can do a quick fix on. And then now there's a dev branch, and the dev branch is the one that's in progress basically, that has features in it or code in it that is not either complete or tested or working yet. So um, just a little, I just wanted to separate those out now that we have some more contributors to the code base. I wanted to make sure that we had some good separation there. So if you do a new feature or a polish or maybe a new shape or something like that, the dev branch would be the branch that you submit the PR to. So that way we could integrate it in with everything else, get some testing done. Um, and I put out intermediate versions, weekly versions, in the members only on my Discord. And so if you want like the bleeding edge of releases, that would be one way of doing it. Otherwise, I really try to only do one monthly release near the end of the month, and that way it kind of rolls up all of the latest features, all of the latest bug fixes, all into one release that you only have to worry about doing once a month. Um, so yeah, it is what it is. The systems here. I got to find out where he put all this code. Um. Dun, dun, dun. So he electric simple. Um. I don't think that's. Let's see. I'm just trying to find where he put. There it is. Lock behavior. Electric kinetic behavior. Um. So yeah, is this? He just asked like, what he might be able to do, and I said, hey, I because I haven't looked into the mechanical systems at all, and I knew that if I was going to do these machines, I was going to have to do a really deep dive into how this all worked. So I just said, hey, if you wanted to look at a motor and an alternator, uh, get torque, float speed. So yeah, the looks like the I don't understand what DCDA is. Stop using abbreviations. Um, yeah, definitely more code comments. More code comments are needed. I know I'm weird when it comes to like my code comments, but man, does it save so much heartache. So much heartache. Um, and of course, siren in the background because Jesus, I can't have 5 minutes of quiet. It's just nonstop. Um. Oh man, this is a messy inline call. Why? Okay. Math done absolute. Speed is greater than speed max. If that's true, factor times speed divided by speed divided by 2, or the power of 2. Yeah. Um, this needs a serious code comment. Um, but it's getting the resistance. So it's looking at the speed. It looks like, yeah, network.speed, geared ratio, right? So it's looking for the absolute value. Um, and then it's saying, hey, the resistance is then a okay. Um, resistance is increases as the speed increases. my brain, I can't just glance at a block of code like this and just understand what it does. I just can't do it. I understand the syntax. If speed is greater than speed max, then resistance factor. It's basically adding either this value or this value. But I can't look at this value and go, oh, I know exactly what that does. That's just like my brain just doesn't work like that. This is why I have so many code comments in my code. But anyway, the process here had to be, so if we look at blocks, we had to have a block, like a jump block no, we didn't. We just needed the electric simple BE. No, which one was it? Um, not is it in block? I don't know where he put it. The electric kinetic behavior is fine, right? Because the game does a lot of stuff in the behavior of the block entity. I'm just trying to find where he put. I really hope he didn't put it in the container. Um, electric container. Nope, not in simple. Nope. Fluid, that's mine. I know that. I guess I don't know. Um, is my project just not showing me where it should be? Register blocks. Electric kinetic. There it is. Where is this? Dot block. Go to definition. Yeah. Where is this file? Vintage engineering dot block. Why isn't it in block? Where is this file at? Um, Vintage engineering dot block. Block crude oil, all the things. Am I just blind? There it is. Jesus. Why am I? Oh man, YouTube blindness is crazy today. Um, okay. So it's the electric block, right? But it also has to have the mechanical power block interface, which is it's the main interface for the mechanical system. It gives you access to all the things. Um, I'm not under mechanical network question mark. Is this intended? The annotation for null reference would only be used in code with a nullable annotations context. Um, block why is this internal? That should not be internal. When creating an API, you need to be able to have other people use this. But I don't understand. I'm gonna have to ask him about this. Wish he would pop into chat, but should only be used in a nullable context. Let's look at the base game. I don't know why that question mark exists. I don't think the base game had any of this kind of code. Right? So here we have another example of that. Get network. Yeah, this is not nullable. I don't understand I don't understand the reason for that. That should not be nullable. I mean, yes, it can return null. I just heard a beep. Why did I hear that? I have OBS open. Why does Discord not? The Discord lately has been just not very good. Yeah. Every other time I've opened OBS, Discord goes into like streamer mode. Except now. Today. It doesn't go into streamer mode. I don't know why. Okay, well, we're gonna move on. This system, I need time to look at this system. For one, he didn't have any code comments in here at all. And it's like, yeah, I need to get this stuff formatted the way, like, I don't know. You look at a code base and you see how everything is formatted in the code base, and then you just kind of do your own thing. But yeah, there's no code comments in here at all, and like, I'm a stickler for code. I know I even mentioned it. Nobody likes to do code comments, right? Nobody likes to do it, but it doesn't mean they're not important, especially if you have other people looking at your code. Anyway, so what do I want to do today? I want to start dipping my toe into the multi-block system. Okay. So what does that mean? Let's look at the design document for the multi-block system. Okay. Oh, that's bright. Jesus. Okay, so I built this in collaboration with another dev, and he wanted a really nitty-gritty, detailed design document for the feature. And so over a couple week period, we built this. I would add sections and build sections of it, send it to him, and he would put in like questions, like comments, and he would just add like questions here, questions there, and then I would go in and then, basically like add extra details and just kind of, we just kind of worked and built this design document, and it was just kind of like my vision right? My vision for the feature. And then when I would ask him about a certain feature of it, you know, I wasn't sure what his skill set was because he was offering to build the feature. And so I wasn't sure what he could do. And so he assured me, that he could do certain things, and I added them to the design document. Well, when we got done with the document, he basically was like, he got like really busy at work, and then he just sort of never came back. Um, and his reason was that I didn't have enough design document. It was bizarre. It was just like I literally built a design document, and his he was just like, it's not designed. I don't I don't know if he's new to the modding world or whatever. Like, who in the modding world does super intricate design documents for every little thing they do in a mod? Like, I just don't think the mod development system or the world does that. En masse. Um, but anyway, it's that corporate mentality. When you get a job and the job has you just document every possible line of code, then you can't function without it, I guess. But yeah, so I designed this feature. I designed parts of this feature uh, with like his skill set in mind. Well, that's not my skill set. He was a phenomenal god tier programmer, phenomenally good, and I'm not that good. I know my limits, and I'm trying. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying. I mean, this has been over 2 year long odyssey now of building this mod, and it's way outside my comfort zone. And so I have been learning a lot, for sure. I've been learning a lot about like a lot of like modern coding, as well as just learning things that I didn't have to learn in the corporate world when I was doing, .NET apps and stuff for clients. It's just you don't really run into a lot of like real time, ticking and all of that, and as well as the rendering stuff. The rendering stuff is just way outside my wheelhouse. So, but basically, here's the gist of it. Really nitty gritty. The base game has a multi-block system, okay, but it's limited. It's limited in how big your multi-blocks can be. I think it's 5 by 5 by 5. It might be like 5 by 5 by 6. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's 5 by 5, and then it's by something, by 5 or by 6 or something. So it's a finite size. That's the biggest you can have, because every block that's not the main block. There's one block in a multi-block, right? When it comes to, um, let's say the kiln, or the furnace, the steel furnace, cementation furnace. Um, there's one block in that whole thing that validates and actually crafts everything, and that's uh the coffin block right in the center. Right, that coffin block is the thing that runs the whole show. Right, it's validating the fuel, it's validating the multi block, it's damaging the blocks when it gets done. It's doing the whole thing. Right, so there's one we're calling that the principal. Right, that's the principal block, or the controller. I'm more of a controller, so this is the controller block. So 5 by 5 by 5, I believe, around that block is the biggest. So every block space around that points to the principal block by its name. So the game generates a name, a block's code. That's what I mean by name, a code. So it would be like block dash multi-block dash and then an XYZ. And that XYZ is a hard-coded offset to the principal. right? So the block itself, just the code, points to the principal, right? Very, very easy to get to the principal to interact with it. But a finite number of blocks around it. So a 5x5, let's say 5x5x5, right? That's 125 or 124 dummy blocks that have to go around, right? So the game generates 124 dummy block names, and there you go. Like, it just offsets it from every block you're looking at points to the principal. Well, that's fine for the base game. If you're not ever expecting larger multi-blocks to be built, that system works well, right? It's a simple, the block itself, it could look like air, right? It could be air, it could have no collision, but it still points to that. There's still a block there that points to it. Okay, so what happens if you want bigger multi-blocks? Right? I want bigger multi-blocks. I'm thinking nuclear reactors, oil refineries, pump jacks, distillation towers, whatever, diesel generators, arc smelters, wherever your imagination can go. 5x5x5 is really, really limited, like really limited. So what can we do to mitigate that? So, for simply put, the dummy blocks is just, you have a single block that is a dummy block, right? You have a single block, but you also have a block entity. You have a block entity that is the actual thing, because a block entity is unique to the block, to that space, right? That position, every block position. The blocks are the same. It's the block entity that's different. Because I want multi-blocks. Okay, here it is, 5x6x5, right? Okay, so it is 6 tall. So 5x5 base, 6 tall. That's the limit. And I want to support 9x9x16, or basically almost unlimited with this system. The system would be unlimited, right? So 9x9x16 is kind of my goal. But that would be a 1146 of the base game dummy blocks if I were to do it the way that the game does. That would be that's crazy, and it just goes up exponentially from there. So the way that I envision this is you have a single block that's just like the vintage engineering multi-block dummy block, right? Multi-dummy block. And then its block entity is encoded with the offset to the principal or the controller block. And that's how I envision it. It's just one block entity and one block. So that is fine. And then as you build the machine, it's basically like it's maintaining and keeping track of all of those spaces. And it's the controller block is the thing that's running the show. All of the other blocks in the multi-block, right? You have the controller block, but all of the other blocks in the multi-block, they're just dummies. Like they're not actually doing anything, but looking cool. And this is how Minecraft works. If anybody's wondering, like, this is how Minecraft works. When you build an enormous reactor for mechanism, right? You have this huge reactor. There's one block that actually is managing all of that. In that whole huge thing, it's probably the controller block. Wherever you put that controller block in that system, that's the thing that's managing it, that's validating it, that's rendering like the water that's inside. That's the thing that's controlling the whole show, is a single block. Everything else is just eye candy. And this is how Minecraft works across the board. Even something like the digital miner, right? It's a placeable multi-block. It's 3x3x3 blocks when you place it, but there's only one block space that actually is that, and that's the center bottom block. That's why that's the block you can interact with, right? That's the block you can use like time in a bottle on. If you dig down underneath it, that center bottom block, you speed that up. That's the thing that's running it, right? Everything else is just eye candy. So I'm basing this feature in my design on kind of how I think Minecraft multi-blocks work, and that is the block entity has just an encoding to um the controller, and the controllers are going to be where 90% of the work and code is going to be in this mod or in this feature, because the controller is going to be just an insane amount of validation, because it's going to know like what blocks make up the build. So unlike immersive engineering or immersive petroleum, I'm breaking away a little bit from that. Instead of the machine being strictly based off of just regular blocks that you build, because I haven't really dug into the code base of immersive, because it's a nasty bird's nest of code. It's really hard to discern like what is going on in that code base. But if I'm trying to merge like two different features from two separate mods. One is immersive engineering, the multi-block. So I'm trying to get that feature. And the other is the projector, or the in-game build helper from immersive petroleum, right? And so there's a section in here for yeah, we'll get to block collisions, all that kind of stuff in a second. Um do 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 do. Do 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 do. Monitoring block entities. Yeah, there's when he would the reason why these are like not chosen, not chosen, not chosen, not chosen, not chosen, chosen, is like he was presenting like multiple ways of solving a certain problem, and then I would just choose which one that I think we should go for. But he didn't want to take out ones that we're not doing for some reason. So like not chosen means we're not going to do it this way. But anyway, I'm gonna have to reread this again. Um, so we have the process by uh creating this, and then I have a handbook section here. But core block variant. So the core blocks or the controller blocks, I'm looking at core because it's the core. So immersive engineering and slash immersive petroleum, I'm going to kind of merge those two together. They you build the multi blocks, and then there's like this whole handbook that kind of shows you the layers, and then the immersive petroleum gave you the projector that let you see like a little ghost image of the block that you want to place, etc. And wow, I would love to do that feature. And I thought it was in here somewhere. Rendering. So he did a test for multi-block rendering. Because the multi-block, when you finish it, when you complete the build, it's going to swap the block to be a big, cool-looking multi-block, right? It's going to be large. It's going to be a single block, right? A single object that can have animations. It can have all sorts of like things. But just like in immersive engineering, when you finish the structure and you swap it to like a pump jack or a refinery or something like that, you get a model swap, right? It swaps the entire model over to something cooler looking than just a bunch of blocks, and that's what I'm going for. Is I'm going for that look. Hey, Oz.
Hey.
Um. So anyway, the feature that I'm not really sure I'm going to be able to do, and this is what really has been stopping my progress on this, is the rendering of a ghost block of all of the required blocks. Right? Let's say you're building a pump jack, and a pump jack is made from you know uh, steel scaffolding, steel blocks, motor. There's just a finite number of blocks go into building this, steel fence or whatever. Design it sort of like you see in immersive petroleum, but so it's like maybe 5 different types of blocks, right? Five different blocks go into the build. Well, ideally, I would want those blocks when you place the controller or the core, right? When you place the core, that is controlling the direction of the like how the block or how the machine is going to face. So that takes care of that problem of what direction it is. So it knows its orientation. And then how do you help the player? How do you help the player know where to put what block? Right? The handbook right now I don't know of any way that I could add images to the handbook. I there's got to be a way. There has to be a way, but I don't know. I'm not gifted enough in that kind of code of having a little mini simulation of the game and show the different layers of blocks like that feature alone, or something similar to like the create ponder system. That is a huge mountain of code that makes that happen, right? And it's all rendering. Like that's so far outside of my wheelhouse. Like I would have to go back to college to try to figure that shit out. So we're not going to be doing anything like that because I am incapable of it. If somebody out there who is a god tier programmer is like, you know what, I could probably do that feature, would be ecstatic. I would be ecstatic. But barring that, and that's really the thing that has been blocking me this whole time, is not knowing how I would do that. Right? There's a mini dimension system in the game. There's a way to show ghost blocks. There is. Try to load a schematic. Right? Download my schematic for my cathedral, and when you go to place the cathedral, it gives you a ghost image of the whole thing. Right? I know that this function works. I just don't know how to make it work for this use case. So it's out there somewhere. There's the ability to do it is out there, but I don't know how to do it. It's just not in my wheelhouse. So I was describing this to somebody and saying, this is the thing that I just don't have confidence to do. A lot of this other stuff, I can work through, and I can chip away at it, and I can make it work. And so they suggested doing what Vise did with his multi-blocks, and just color code the block highlight to what block you place, right? Because I did a block highlight system with my building gadget port, and so I'm semi-familiar with that system, and I know that you can pick the color of the highlight. So I was like, okay, and I let my mind sort of grind on that for a little while. So basically, the handbook would tell you, at least initially, right? It would initially tell you like blue, and I would have to pick colors that are different enough, you know, to be able to be, identified in the game when the block highlights show up. And then that would also limit how many different kinds of blocks, because you can't be like, red is this block, dark red is this block, light red is this block, right? You have to have colors that are different enough. And then, of course, that immediately makes me think that the very next complaint that I'm going to hear in the comments section is, hey, I'm colorblind. I don't know my reds from my greens. And I'm just going to throw my hands up and go, I can't. So then I need a system in order to cater for that. I need a system that says, let's change the colors. I don't know. I don't even know what the solution to that would be. Because I'm not colorblind, I don't know what colors they can discern. And so I'd be like, I have no idea how to solve that. But anyway, so having in the handbook, like, red equals scaffold, blue equals steel fence, etc., and you just run down and you find color keys, and I can make that into a config somehow. Do color keys like an RGB color key, and just be like, here are all the different color keys, and it just like picks from that list. From the top down, it's just I have 6 blocks. I need the top 6 color keys, and it just pulls those out, and that would allow somebody to go in the config and edit those color keys, right, and sort of change that around. And I could even make it so there are some named colors. I think there's some named colors in the code base already. I don't color util maybe. Yeah. Color to string. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's like a named color enumeration somewhere. I would have to dig into it. I'm not gonna bother with that right now. But this will take a color which is in the game as an int, right? It encodes color as ints in the game, and then you need to be able to convert from and to that int. Right? So like HSV, that is hue, saturation, and value, right? Hue and saturation and value. So value is the brightness. The saturation is how much of the hue to add, and then the hue is obviously a hue color. But there's different ways of encoding color, and so I would have to figure out. I would have to figure this out, but it looks like he has like black and white, but anyway, so that was a tangent. So having blocks color encoded in their highlights, I think it's for me it's a doable way of sort of bridging between what I want the feature to be, like what I would like it to be, and what I'm capable of doing. So the one block we have in the game already, there's one machine for testing this feature already, and that's the creosote oven. And there's a reason why. The creosote oven is the simplest damn multi-block you can possibly imagine, right? It's a 3x3x3. It's dead simple. And I put it in there. It's part of the LV system because it is the most basic multi-block, as how it's built, right? It's literally going to be a cube of a block, very, very simple to build, and yeah, it's just it's going to be very easy to build and validate and all of that. So I needed something really, really simple to get this feature up and running. So I have in here defined so the dummy blocks. The reason why I'm doing the dummy block way is the dummy blocks can be defined now. So we have a regular dummy block, which is just a generic block, and I covered this. I covered this a few minutes ago as to how this system, I would imagine, working. Um, so the dummy block can also have specialized variants of itself, and so the dummy block itself can be, we can have variants of it that have different functionalities. Basically, like interacting with pipes, interacting with fluid, stuff like that. So that's down the road a little bit. Once I start getting more and more features done, um, it's just going to be, uh, I don't know. It's just going to be a little bit. It's going to be easier to edit a working system than to invent all of the features all at once without testing. So I want to get something in and working before I start making it fancy and adding other cool things and stuff. So, um, anyway, do I think somebody, yeah, Len came. Len, you're not going to be able to talk in this channel. This is a little bit more restricted voice channel. But uh, you can certainly chillax in here. You're gonna get audio that's out of sync with the stream. But it is what it is. Um, I spent the first part of the stream um, doing a quick once over. My number one thing is you need code comments, man. Like you need like none of this code is like documented. Um, this is just like, oh, here's a bunch of code, and good luck figuring out what the hell it does. So yeah, um, I have tons and tons of code comments in here, and so that's just one of those things. But we need we're gonna build another API. We're gonna add a folder called Buru multiblock. Okay, so this is going to be vintage engineering dot multiblock. Okay, or should I have multiblock? Multiblock. Um, and yeah, technically speaking, like we could use block entity, and I really should have um I really should have like standardized my naming convention. It's just everything's been growing sort of organically. Um, that's one uh Mark one for the design document people. Document the entire mod over a span of 6 months and then start writing code. My brain just doesn't work like I can't think of every little nitty gritty like detail and solution. Okay. Okay, so multi-block. Oh, is Renegade home? Here the one day that I do a vintage engineering stream and Oss is around and Renegade is around and Jesus. Okay. So yeah, the big thing about having the system that we have here is all of the blocks, all of the dummy blocks that are around the core, right? They serve a purpose. For one, they can define a custom collision box, right? So You have custom collision boxes and selection boxes. Also, they also detect when they're broken, right? If you have a multi-block and you break one of the blocks inside the multi-block, it breaks the multi-block, right? So you have to be able to swap all of the blocks again, and sort of like what block was I, right? You have a dummy block at a certain position. That position is defined in JSON as a certain type of block. Well, once the multi-block is completed, it swaps all of the blocks, right? All of the actual like scaffolding block, fence block, all of those are swapped for basically the dummy block, which is going to be just air, right? It's because the core block is then swapped to be the big block, right? The big multi-block in whatever orientation. And so you have to, the big multi-block, which is just a block that's big, it exceeds the block space, that works, right? The creosote oven right now works like that. It is using the base game multi-block system, but it's a big single block that works. So what happens then when you go in and you break one of the blocks that make up that multi-block, right? Let's pretend for a moment the creosote oven is 3x3x3, made of 3x3x3 brick blocks, right? Blue clay brick blocks. Well, when you place that last block, the core validates it and swaps it. It takes all 20, or not 3x3x3, 27 blocks, right? It takes 27 blocks, well 26 because the core is outside of that. So it's 3x3x3 minus 1 because the core would be the center of that. The core detects, oh yeah, all the blocks are placed. It's validated. And now we're going to swap all of those bricks that you just placed, right? That looks like a big cube of bricks. We're going to swap all those for air. And then the core itself is going to change from a single core block to the big multi-block, right? The shape of it. The shape of the core is going to swap. And there's built-in systems in the game to do that. You know, the exchange block system just whoop, it just swaps that block, and there you go. You now have a block. Well, if you go back in and you use your pickaxe on that, right? Well, that breaking that block should unbuild the multi-block. So now you need the core to swap all the blocks back and then basically break the block that you broke already, right? So it needs to swap them all back and then break the block that you just broke at that position and then drop that item on the ground. Because the block you actually broke is a dummy block, not the brick block. So it has to swap everything back and then manually break that brick block to be able to drop that on the ground to make the player realize, like, hey, I just broke this multi-block. So it uncrafts, unbuilds the multi-block. And then what do you do with the items that are inside of it and blah, blah, blah. Like there's a whole cascade of stuff that you're going to have to test for. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So this global event's chosen. What does this do? And again, this document, you can go on the repo into the design documents and look at this multi-block system, right? This document is out there. You can review it, and kind of go through. And again, the chosen is given so many different ways of solving the same problem. Which one do we choose? Which one do we go for? And so global events has been chosen. So detecting block changes around the core. So how do you do this? And I am not 100% sure, right? I'm not 100% sure if each individual dummy block like what we can do with a dummy block, because a dummy block is obviously going to have its own events and its own interaction, its own collision box, and all of that. So how can we interact with that and then um, inform the principal or the core? Those names are all synonymous, right? Core, principal, controller. It's all the same block, right? Update when the core block is clicked. So I hear a weird sound. The cat knocked something over last night that weighed more than she does. I'm like, how the hell did you knock something? Like, you knocked an end table over. And it was like, how the hell did you do that? Anyway, it made a crash at like midnight. Yeah, my neighbors were like, what the hell was that? Stupid cat. And then she runs away. She's just like, wasn't me. Anyway, so I think this might have. Okay. So the ghost blocks. This feature, instead of ghost blocks, just think of highlight blocks, right? Because I'm not confident that I will be able to do the ghost blocks. I would love to have the ghost blocks, but there's no easy way of doing ghost blocks. You have to build and you have to build like a custom like a mini dimension and do all sorts of things. And yeah, it's it's a whole thing. And rendering stuff is not in my wheelhouse, so it's going to be 10 times harder for me to implement a feature like that. So instead of ghost blocks, it's just going to be highlighted, right? Color coded highlighted. Um, so when you place the controller or the core, whatever you want to name it, when you place that, the direction you're looking is already encoded, so I can already rotate it based on that direction. So that is built in. It's all northeast, southwest. You're not going to be able to place them up and down. I mean, Jesus. um, maybe down the road we can add that functionality, but can you imagine trying to place an oil refinery like on its side? Um, I can imagine there could be use cases for multi blocks that could point in any direction, but I don't exactly know what those are.
Yeah, I can't think of any offhand. Refineries wouldn't make any sense though, because they require the verticality for it to function. I
Sure,
mean,
but I mean, like any like whatever, like name a multi block, name a structure or a machine or anything that you could slap onto the side of a mountain and you'd go sideways, right? You're going to drill rather than place it up and down, right? So it's sitting where gravity points down. You need to place it on the side, so it's like I don't. There's no reason to do
yeah,
that. So when you place that core, it knows what makes up its multi blocks, right? In the JSON of the core will be defined all of the blocks, right? It's going to define all the blocks that make up the multi-block and all of the offsets and positions. And it's going to be able to rotate itself based on like northeast, southwest. It can rotate that schematic basically. I hope. um, but what it's going to do, what I'm going to try to have it do, is do layer by layer. So the very first layer is the layer of the core. So you put the core down, and that gives you a highlight, right? It highlights all the blocks on that layer, and it's essentially monitoring those block spaces, right? And if you place the block that's the right block, that's the correct block in a block space, I wanted to remove the highlight, right? So it needs to monitor all of those spaces. Well, how do you do that? Right? I'm highlighting the block, but I don't have anything in that block space that can capture an event, right? I don't have air does not have like on block placed, right? Air is just air. It's just an empty block. It's not an ethereal thing. It's not a block that you can interact with. So this global events, we can grab did place block, right, and monitor did place block and say, hey, we can monitor these events, and if we have an active multi-block in building, right, because we have to also think about like multiplayer. We have multiple people building multiple multi-blocks all at the same time, right? So, and block highlights, I'm pretty sure are client side. I'm about 99.9% sure those are client side, right? So if person A is building this multi-block and person B wants to come in and help, right? Person A is going to place the core, see the highlights, but person B is not going to see those highlights. So then we need to have a way of giving those highlights to person B as well. So we need a master system to track what multi-blocks are being built, what players are being managed, and like it's more of a complex system than you might think. Like there's more to it because the block highlights, like if person A is seeing the highlights and is building the block, person B comes in and is like, hey, I want to help. We can have them like right click on the core, and that gives them a copy of the highlights, and it basically replicates the whole system over to them with the same events, the same. It's basically a copy of everything, and that client is now able to see all of the interactions. I haven't dug into the block highlight system in a while. I'm hoping that there's an easy solution to having multiple people see highlights. I don't know. It would be nice to be able to just give the highlights to everybody, but block highlights is a very, very easy way to leak memory, and you have to be very, 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 very careful. Very careful on not leaking memory when it comes to block highlights. So it's going to be it's going to be a touchy feature. But as you place the right blocks, the highlights should be going away. I'm hoping we can do that. We might have to, when a block is placed and it's the correct block in the correct position, we might have to then scrap and re-highlight blocks because of the way the highlight system works. I'm not 100% if you can just individually remove highlights or if you have to just scrap them all and redo it, because the highlighted blocks array, I think it's just one thing, right? So again, I haven't really dove into that feature in a while. It's been a couple of years, so I'm hoping this is a thing. So once that layer is done, once all of the blocks are placed in that layer, the core detects that, right? It's already validated all those blocks. because it does so as you place them. Then it looks at itself and its schematic and goes, okay, do I have another layer? Is there another layer? And if there is, whoom, highlight all of those blocks, and then highlight, right? So it does it as it goes up, and it just gives you one layer at a time. That way, it doesn't overwhelm you with a whole big, cube of all these different colored blocks and stuff, which you wouldn't be able to discern. If you're standing in the middle of all these like color coded highlighted blocks, you're not going to be able to know what color goes where. So it has to be one layer at a time. And that, again, adds another layer of complexity onto this. So, anyway, so the global events is one of those like we can monitor did place block and did break block. We can monitor those and we can grab the position of those and compare it against all in process, in progress multi blocks, and then validate and do all of the shenanigans with if you break the block, do we re-highlight it? Or was it already highlighted and they just put the wrong block there, so they have to break the block? Blah blah. Like there's a lot of bizarre edge cases that you have to manage. But the gist of it is these two events would fire anytime somebody places a block. So we need to be very, very careful with how much code and how intricate these things are, right? Because if you put too much into these events, into the code of these events, it will slow the game down because you have a bunch of people placing blocks. This event is firing every time somebody places a block, right? And it's like it can really quickly overwhelm if you have a huge amount of code. So we need to detect, hey, the first thing we need to detect is there any multi-blocks that are in progress, right? That are incomplete. If there are, then run some code. If there's not, get out of there, right? Get out of the event because we want as little code running in there as possible. Okay, so yeah, scan blocks at timed interval. That was another option. Update when the core block is clicked. No, I didn't want to do that because then you would have to like put all the blocks of the layer down and then click the controller for the core, and then that would validate and up. But that would assume the core is clickable and not buried under other blocks, right? That would make the core have to be placed on like the outside perimeter of the multi-block, which kind of defeats the point of calling it a core if it's on the outside, right? The core is supposed to be like the protected center of the multi-block, managing everything. Uh, cannery. Oh, this must be one that this must be one that Lightning like suggested. It basically places like a decor block. It basically places a dummy block at each position. Um, but then you would have to break that and then place another. It would be, yeah, that would be a lot of decors. Um, the lambda. That was another mod that Blue Lightning made. Lambda is the craziest mod I've ever seen. Like, just look it up on the ModDB. It's crazy how the technical, that is just crazy, a crazy technical mod. Lambda. Um, Um, called block monitor to watch for block placements and breaks. Um, I mean that we might be able to do that with the core. Um, monitoring. No, I don't want to do on test later. Okay, so again, this document is you can if you want a really nitty gritty view of what I was going for, um, in terms of what this feature could be. Um, this document is on the repo. Okay, so we need um some multi-block. Let's see if there's what multi-block. So multi-block structure is part of the base game, right? I've known this for a long, long time. But again, it's limited in size, as far as I know. Walk matching blocks, but we could sort of kit bash some of this functionality, or at least not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to try to validate the multi-block. But I'm trying to find highlight incomplete parts. So this is where you highlight when you highlight the multi blocks from like the cementation furnace. It highlights all the blocks that you're missing. This is what's doing. And obviously, if it's just grabbing a single color, and what we want to do, colors dot add list colors color world search get color blocks dot add colors dot add. Yeah, this kind of code, this like bothers me. What the hell? What the hell are these doing? Right? What are these doing? Um, but here's the highlight blocks. Um, highlight slot ID. I have no like. So it's just a static int. Um, what I what I think I should instead of the slot ID, the highlight slot, instead of just being a static one for the whole feature, just use the player's user ID, right? So each player has its own. So you're not going to be able to see highlights for multiple multi-block instances. You're going to be able to work on one, and that's it. Int colors list blocks blocks.add colors.add. So it looks like possibly each block position maps with a list of colors, right? So those two lists, I think, have to be the same size. You have to have the same number of things in both of them. Because yeah, it adds the block, as you can see, this for loop adds the block, and then adds this color or this color, right? It's just, it's like, you want this color or do you want this color? But it has to add a color. It doesn't not add a color. Um, and then highlights mode. I don't know what this is for. Centered absolute is what like it is the block position because you're passing it a block position. And it's like, hey, I'm not offsetting based on a center point. I'm giving you an absolute list of blocks, which is the one that we would want to use. Um, block codes. So I don't know. There's nothing in here in terms of so this you can export one of these by making a selection with World Edit, looking at the center block, right, which should be your controller master. So this is um, you have to be looking at that, then typing WEMGen code. So multi-block generator. I would have to find this command. Handle mgem code. Current block selection. Okay. Let's see if there's any size limitations here. Multi-block structure. So this is just outputting the JSON. Um, that you can then copy, but is there start marker and end marker? I don't know. I'm not immediately seeing where the limitation is. So what? The start marker and end marker. This is part of World Edit, but the multi-block structure, I know somewhere was a limit. Where would have that been? Um, let's see. Oh, that's always bright. Um, vintage story, asset survival, block types, stone, cementation furnace, coffin. This stone coffin. This is your multi-block controller. That's what this is. Um, so here you have multi-block structure, and you have your XYZs, and your W is which block it is, right? That's very simple mapping. So I want to use this system to actually be able to create and define the structure. But I thought for sure that it wasn't going to be possible to use. I really wish I understood what this does. At it's just that's the weirdest syntax. At dot star, like I think that's I don't know. I don't know what that. I don't know what that does. It's yeah. I don't know. You can imagine like a super big like distillation tower or oil refinery or something like just how many block spaces there's going to need to be. But this defines which blocks are going to be there. So multi-block structure. Highlight incomplete parts. I'm not seeing immediately where the limitation is. Not Unity. I made the mistake of also loading in Dyson Sphere program code. I should really get rid of those. But multi-block block multi-block because I know for a fact that block multi-block game content. Hmm. Get block entity. Block is block multi-block. If somebody knows out there where the limitation comes from, because I know for a fact that the multi-block is limited in size because of how this system works. The game generates, right? The game generates the displacement number, right? You can see variant. So let's look at if we can find block types somewhere in here. There might be a multi-block. Block types. Where would that be? Um, overlay. So block types multi. Um, hmm. Multicolored? No. Multi-block. Okay. So this game block types assets. I'm sorry, assets game. What? Didn't I look in there? Oh, game, not survival. So that's like a base API block types multi-block. There it is. So you can see the variant groups here, dx, dy, dz. So where do those numbers come from? We have states, n2, n1, 0, p1, p2. Okay, so what does this mean? This means dx has 5 variants, dy has 6 variants, dz has 5 variants. 5 by 6 by 5. That's your limited in size. So what is encoding in these? Well, these are encoded. They're offset from the principal, right? 0, 0, 0 is your center point, right? And then the dy, you can have 2 blocks down and 3 blocks up from that. So this is where the limitation comes from. When it generates these multi-block blocks in all of the different spaces. Right now, if you go and you use the creosote oven, right? It's a 3x3x3 block, but it's what you're placing is the very center of the bottom, right? That's the block. The shape is large. You collide with it because I derive it from the multi-block. Right? I derive it from the multi-block and I pass in that this thing is 3x3x3, which generates those multi-blocks, which add the collision and all of that kind of stuff, right? It's just a built-in feature, but it's limited in size. So if I wanted to increase the size to 9x9x16, right, I would have to put an extra 4 values in here, an extra 4 values in here, and another 11 values in here. Right? Which, no, this is 6 values? Yeah, this is 6. So another 10 values in here. So it would be 5 times 6 times 5 versus 9 times 16 by 9. It is a vastly different number of dummy blocks that are generated. And yeah, it's a finite number. 100%. But I think it's like 100 and let's see, 5 by 6 by 5. That's 150. Okay. Versus 9 by 16 by 9 is 1296. It's over 1100 more dummy blocks. That's a lot of dummy blocks. Plus, it negates the ability to sort of like have specific places that you interact with, like fluids and power and stuff like that, which is what I want. I want to have specific block locations that have interactions, and then like wire connection nodes. Like there needs to be a custom multi-block definition, basically, where the variant groups are those interaction variants. And then the entity class is the thing that's encoded with that specific offset to the principal. So this right here, right, unloaded, this is where it's replacing the offset. This is where it's encoding the offset based on the value of those variant numbers. And I need to use the bathroom really quick. I'm out of coffee, so that's pretty good. I'm going to be right back. All right. So let's start by dropping in a class called VE multiblock. Okay. We're going to do another class. VE multi block entity. Okay. So we have the block entity and we have the block. Okay. We are going to derive the multi-block from block. We are going to derive for now the block entity from block entity. The block entity is going to have a private vector 3i offset. Jesus. Stop trying to assume I'm trying to. Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah, I need to do vector 3i. Oops. Get return offset. Okay. So it's going to be an internal offset that's only got, you can only get the offset, you cannot set the offset outside of this object. So just to protect it a little bit more, so you can't have code that just messes with that and scrambles the offsets. So the block, then we need to have have a public vector 3i get offset. Return API dot world dot block accessor dot get block entity of VE multi-block entity at position how do see this is one of the reasons why that the base game encodes the offset in the block name and like the code of the thing, because it this offset inverse, not sure why. Unloaded. Because remember, as a quick refresher, in the game, a block versus block entity. If you look around and you have a bunch of chests in your world, Who doesn't? Every one of those chests is the same block, but they all have unique block entities, which is the thing that holds the inventories. It holds like some of the custom information about them, but they're all the same block. So to get offset here, we need to pass in block position. Okay? Because the block does not have position information because it's the same block everywhere. Right? So the block entity has a position, but the block does not. So we need to pass in what block position that we want to grab, because get block, we want to get that offset at the entity. So we need to pass in the position, right? Dot, let's see, return dot offset. Okay. This could be null. Okay. Retrieve the block entity agreement. Returns null if there is no block entity at this position. So we need to, this needs to be nullable, right? So this can return null if there's no, if this block entity does not exist, right? So we want to do gets multi-block offset at given position. Oh yeah, I need to do, I think it's slash. No, come on. It's slash. What is it? Slash. God damn it. I have this everywhere in my code. I just can't remember. This is not the right file to look at. Not the right file to look at either. That's a BR. I know that there's a way to do it just with one thing. Yeah, BR. Okay, BR and then slash. There we go. I knew it was in here somewhere. BR and then slash. There we go. Returns null if given position is not a multi-block DE multi-block entity. Position. Block position to check. Returns vector 3i or null. Okay. That's just a way in the block to grab the offset, but I still am going to need to send in the position. Right? So the API, this is sort of a ubiquitous call that's part of the block that's, you know, it's just included in the initialization of the block itself. But the block entity obviously is where the rubber hits the road here. Okay, so I should have warned everybody. That's really bright. I wish there were. Why isn't there a dark mode? Like, is there a dark mode in this stupid thing? I'm so used to everything supporting dark mode. I mean, it would be nice if it if it actually had the thing in the stuff for a dark mode. That would be nice because that is really bright. Um, so there's a lot of work that's going to go into this, but I just wanted to cover what we're doing and why and what the new feature is. But this multi-block structure, we can hopefully I'll try. We're gonna need to at least try to generate one of these that's max or at least the size that I want, 9 by 9 by 16. Um, so yeah. Um, oh, Jesus, it's so bright. So the other thing we're gonna need is some way of defining the core blocks, right? So I think multi-block. I need to rename this multi-block uh dummy. Okay. And then I want to rename this multi-block block entity MB entity dummy. Because this is going to be different. The multi-block dummy to multi-block entity dummy. So let's do. Should I just do MB multi-block dummy? So just BEMB dummy. Um, is there a better name than dummy? Is there a better nomenclature for that? Um, um, like multi-block entity dummy. You have the block dummy and the block entity dummy. So it'd be like MB dummy, MBE dummy. I don't know if people would immediately know what those are. So uh, dummy block for VE multi-block system. Dummy block entity for VE multi-block system. Okay. So this we want offset from core. Offset of this block from the core of the multi-block. Okay. So these two objects, I mean, these are not done by any stretch, of course, but these two objects are the dummy blocks that wrap around the core, right? So now we need to figure out, all right, how do we then manage the actual core? And I like let's there's another bright warning. Under options view, option. Oh Jesus. View. Uh, wait. Is there? Where's options? Options. View. Uh. Uh. No. LibreOffice Writer. Not seeing. This is LibreOffice, by the way. This is like this is free Office. I've been using it for years and years and years. It's phenomenal. I used to use OpenOffice years ago. I used OpenOffice, and that was for whatever reason bought by Oracle. It was an open source Office suite, and it was purchased by Oracle. I don't know who got that money. I don't know how they divided up the money amongst all of the people who contributed to the open source project. But they immediately just started LibreOffice. The same group. It's like here's a bunch of money for your open office, and it's like, all right, we're going to take all this money, and then we're just going to go and make LibreOffice. So LibreOffice,
Yeah,
it's just like,
I'm I'm guessing the only reason that Oracle bought it is to cut out competition. They didn't like freeware out there. I've gotten that impression from other companies before, like Oracle.
view user interface. Ooh, no,
I see you got a couple comments there.
yeah, I'm looking at that view interface. It's
Ah,
not here. That's just there's no like dark mode in here. Maybe view or options. Uh, general. There's no interface in here. Hmm. Application colors. Ooh. There it is. Yay. Wait. Why not? What? Apply. Uh. Okay. What? Why did? Well, the small victories, I guess. It didn't actually. Dark mode should, be the UI itself should be dark. That's weird. Okay, whatever. Um, let's see. Memory blocks. We'll worry about the nitty gritty, like all the events and stuff. Okay, core block. So this was my uh this was my plan as far as this. So machine name, which is that's the code. Two different values, incomplete and complete. So those are two variants. And then northeast southwest. Right? So obviously incomplete and complete. These are the complete would be hmm, yeah. the actual machines themselves, the actual multi blocks themselves, there's going to be a mountain of code because, like, if you look at my block entities for my machines, they're derived from electric containers. Um, right. So these are just all of the machines. I think the BE blower is more of a yeah. That's a pretty simple one. You're okay, glue. Like it's fine. You guided me to actually look a little deeper into it, and I found it. I found at least part of it. Um, there might be a way to change the interface. Um, user interface. Yeah. See, it's like uh, single toolbar. You'd think that there would be something in here that would be dark mode, but maybe not. I don't know. I can look at it. I can look at it off stream. It's just that when I click to it, it's just like, oh, that's so bright. Because like I like this is dark mode to me. This is what I mean by dark mode. Like a little bit better. Um, so the core blocks, I gotta think. Let's think for a second. The block entities here, like the electric container block entity, as well as the blocks, right? So we have the blocks, the electric blocks. Now, these um I got to think for a second cuz the the interface or the electrical power is a behavior, and we need access to that in the core block, right? We need to be able to pull electricity, and we need to be able to pull and push. Like we're gonna diesel generator, which is I'm imagining would be like a 5 by 3 by 3 block, um, or multi block, is going to need to be able to generate power, and then interfacing with that is going to require a special dummy block to either wire it directly, or one of the other thoughts I had was the way that immersive engineering does it, and then you have a specific type, you have a special type of relay that's a connector, right? If you put a relay on a certain position, like you have to craft them, they're separate blocks in immersive engineering, right? You have the relays, and then you have the connector. And a connector is able to push and pull power from the multi-block it's sitting on. So it has to have some special code that interfaces with the multi-block. And that's we can do that. We can replicate. That would be a lot easier than having a little wire nub that we would have to wire together. Like that, it would be easier to do. The alternate way to do it would be to integrate the relay with the multi-block, right? So the relay would be placed in the schematic of the multi-block. Um, and that way you would really show the player like this is the place, and then you could use the specific relay of the tier of power. Right? Is this a LV relay that you're placing, or is this an MV relay? So I kind of like that idea. The only problem is, what do you then do with the dummy block once the multi block is finished? You keep it the relay, and that would be a special type of dummy block, right? You would have a variant of dummy block, because when you have variants, you can define specific block entities for variants, right? So you can do entity class by type, and you can specify different entity classes for different variants of a block, which is really nice. Um, they're all a dummy block, but the block entity classes would be different, because then you would have dummy blocks that are actually like pipe interface and fluid pipe, stuff like that. Are would be possible. So the core block then would probably need to be derived from all of my electric based blocks, right? So you'd have electric block as a derived type, and you would have electric block entity, uh, electric container, right? So the electric container is just a openable container. It's just a this is a base game class, and it just indicates that there's a GUI for this block, right? Um, it's assuming that there's a GUI. There doesn't necessarily have to be one, but we have a simple block entity that is just a block entity. Um, it has the same sort of thing, but it just doesn't. It's so like the LV charger doesn't have an interface, right? It doesn't have a GUI that pops up. So the LV charger would be a simple B versus like the metal press, which is a container because it has a UI. So that's the difference between those two. And I'm assuming that multi blocks would have, at least in some way, shape, or form, a UI for interaction, or at least feedback, right? So even a refinery or distillation tower, you might not be able to manually interact with the slots and the fluids and all of that, but having it have a UI, right, would allow a level of feedback and stuff where you'd be able to walk into the refinery, right click it, and have a UI that gives you at least some information. The amount of power, what it's crafting, like if any of the fluids are full, right, you could just have a bunch of bars for however many fluids it holds. So there would definitely be a reason why pretty much I can imagine every single multi-block would at least have a UI in some way, shape, or form. So the multi-block then, we can have another class that is VE multi-block core. Okay. I don't know why this defaults as internal. Okay. And then this is going to be electric electric container. No, electric block. Okay. And then this is going to be VEMB entity core. This is going to be a monster of an object. The block entity core of the multi-block is going to be a nightmare to code. But this is going to be electric container BE. And what are we missing? On player right click, inventory class name, and inventory. Okay. And that's fine. We can implement abstract class. We don't need to return true. I don't on player right click, return true. I don't even know what returning true does. It just whatever. It is what it is. Inventory class name, we these are overridable. So MB block entity core. Now okay. Because the core I want right all the meat and potatoes of the functionality to be in the core. And then each machine will have its own block entity, right? In my block entity folder, and it will derive from the core and only include whatever it needs that's specific to that machine. And the core API object is the thing that manages basically like the block highlights, validation, like all of that stuff would be involved. And the last thing we're going to need in the multi-block here is a new class VE multi-block mod. Public, please. No. This is going to be mod system. Okay. So this is another mod system in this mod. Like it's sort of a self-contained API. So this would mark the fourth mod as part of this mod, right? So one mod is the catenary mod. So the catenary system is all the wires. And this is a self-contained, this directory here, catenary, this is its own mod, right? We have the catenary mod. So it's managing wire renders, wire connections, right? It's just a generic, like, point-to-point wire management system. It does not care what the wires do. It doesn't even care what they're for. It's just what system manages the wires. And that's the catenary mod. The next mod system, right, is the electrical network mod. Right here. So this electrical network mod depends on the catenary mod because the electric network mod subscribes to events thrown by the catenary mod, right? So that when you connect wire A to wire B, right, or point to point, let's say this relay to this relay, you connect that wire. What is the catenary? Again, the catenary mod does not care what the wires are for. It validates the wire is valid, right? It says, oh, this wire can connect to this spot and this spot, right? It validates where the wires can connect to, just not what they're for. When a wire connection is made, it spits an event out. The event goes out and says, hey, this wire, which is a block type, so this wire block connected to from this point to this point, and it spits that event out. Now anything subscribing to that event can manage like its own data, and so the electric network subscribes to the catenary event, and it manages all of its data based on those events, right? If the types of wire that is the event throws, if the wire type does not match what the electric network cares about, it just ignores the event, right? So the catenary mod, I have support in there in the JSON. I have support in there for signal wires, communication wires, and through JSON patches, another modder could add a custom wire type into catenary and then add a block entity or a way to manage that wire like by themselves, and it's like, hey, if the wire type is this, right, then use this entity, which then is their own code, right? So I built the system to be very, very expandable, and you can just say, oh, I want the signal wires, and then if the signal wires are used, then use this other system, and you could have a signal mod, and the signal mod would subscribe to the same events that my electric network mod subscribes to, the same block or wire connection and wire disconnect, right? Those two events, and then on the signal side of it, say, oh, if the wire type is an electric, then just ignore it. My mod knows, and if the wire type is signal, then my electric network would ignore it. But then your signal mod would pick that up and be like, ooh, here's a signal wire. Let's manage. We capture that event. Let's manage our data, right? And so it just passed that. The catenary mod just passes that data onto the event, and it's up to you, or it's up to whatever subscribes to that event to actually manage its data, right? So that's the next tier down. The tier under that is actually the Vintage Engineering mod itself, which has all the machines that require the electric network, but that don't really care about the catenary network, like the catenary mod, but the JSON, right? The catenary mod defines the JSON that you need. If I can pull up really quick, see if I can find. Oh Lord, I have so many things open. All right. So the catenary mod defines really specific things, and that is the wire nodes block right here, right? Wire nodes. This is the catenary mod. This is defining what function, right? So I have archetypal functions for the wire, enum wire function, power, communication, signal, like there are archetypes there. And then the actual like connection point as defined by the bounding box, and it's the center of this box, by the way. So you have x1, like you have a three-dimensional thing defined inside the block, and then you have the other corner. So they're just opposite corners, and that builds a cube, right? It builds a square around as defined by these two things. The rotate by type is just, hey, if this is a north one or it's an east one or whatever, then you have to rotate it. But this defines where the wire connection is, how many connections, right? Max connections to this position. And then the wire nodes themselves is an array of wire nodes, which you can have more than one. That is untested. That is code that I need to work on in this new dev mode. Is I need to be able to add multiple wire nodes and have two separate networks associated with a single block, and that's code that I haven't tested at all yet. I support it, but I haven't gone through nitty gritty and tested it at all. But the power tier, this is an added one by my electric network mod. It's saying, hey, wire nodes power tier, this is a valid code as defined by electric network. But the wire function is defined by the catenary mod. And so the vintage engineering mod itself like defines some of its own things. But mainly it's based on the two different APIs that are already existing. The catenary API and the electrical API. And so the multi-block then is a more complex object because it's not only defining its own functionality, but it's also depending on the electrical system and the sort of things like that. So this is another mod because it has to be another mod because it's again going to manage each player and what like highlight blocks and all of the gubbins that are associated with that for each player. And right, so it's like if a player is working on their own multi-block and they have all XYZ highlights, right? And they're like, hey, a friend needs help, and they walk over to another multi-block that's getting produced and they right click the core. Or just right clicking it in general, since possibly the blocks will be able to point to one another. So like right clicking the core would then remove the highlights that they were using and then add the ones that they have now. And then the multi-block mod system is the thing that's managing the actual like in progress multi-blocks in some way. And I'm not sure. It's really hard for me to code in depth when I'm streaming, so I tend not to do too much in depth stuff because I'm too focused on talking, talking through the problems than I am on how to solve the problems. It's a lot easier for me to just sit down here and look at it and sort of design this, but
yeah, it's using a lot of parts of the brain to code and talk. And
yeah, it's plus you have the YouTube blindness it's real. Okay, so we got the dummy blocks. We have the dummy block entities with their offsets. We have the multi-block core as well as the entity core. So let's go here. The core of multi-block machines. The core block of multi-block machines. The core block entity of multi-block machine. Okay. So this is then the base class of the actual machines, like the actual cores. So the first one is going to be the creosote oven, right? And that is going to then, we're going to need to redefine how the creosote oven is built, right? Which is a lot of JSON. So what I want to do then is look at how can we get the oh, this is the wrong. I was like, why am I looking at the wrong block types? Minimize, maximize. I just want to verify that. Okay. I usually have a basic minimum number of mods that I use in my test world, which I highly recommend. Have as few mods in your test environment as possible, and it just speeds up. It just speeds everything. I just want to make sure we can build this thing. There's not any errors. Now remember, nothing in the game is using these objects, right? We're not even registering these objects with the game. So we shouldn't run into any problems with like exceptions and stuff because nothing is actually using these. But I want to debug this, and then generate the multi-block definition for the creosote oven, because we can do that with the command. And then maybe we could see if we can use the same command to define one that's like the max size of what we want. Also make sure when you're debugging, you are in windowed mode, right? This is why I'm in. If you're full screen mode and there's an exception that happens, it's really hard getting your desktop back. The game really does not like giving you back your desktop, even when it errors, even when it exceptions. So yeah, this is my test world. There's the creosote oven. So this right now uses all of the base. This is the base game multi-block. And so I have my pipes. The pipes are looking at this, right? This is reporting as the creosote oven, but this block right here that it's looking at is actually that dummy block multi-block that has the long, like the 5 and the 9, and it actually has the block. The actual block in the game is that block, and this block here, the dummy block that's underneath, is defining. It's 3 by 3 by 4 basically, and I am able to define this with that. So how do you craft the creosote oven? Well, the creosote oven is crafted with large gray clay bricks. So we're going to give block brick coarse or running gray 30. Large gray clay bricks. Yeah, it's just gray clay bricks, which is essentially fires into gray clay brick, raw blue clay. So it's you don't need a beehive kiln, right? You don't need a beehive kiln. It fires directly. You have a blue clay brick, it just fires directly into that. So what we want to do is sort of define right? We want to define that. Now, we don't have the core block here yet. But I just want to see. Caller is not allowed to use World Edit. Really? I think it's, yep, there it is. Selection tool. We're going to do, oh, nope. I really hate creative mode. I really hate it. No. Yeah. Hitting E in creative mode, by the way, takes a while because of how many goddamn blocks there are. It's just, there's so many blocks. Okay. Yeah, you see that? If I hit E, watch the animations. Uh, uh, ugh. That's when people are like, "Oh, the game is running fine with all these mods." It's like I don't really have much on here in terms of like variants, but there are mods that add tens of thousands of variants of things, and that would just exacerbate that problem, which I know is it's a cool word. But magic wand mode. I don't have a wand. I have to. Ugh. Oh, so there, there. Okay. So we have that as defined, and if we go down here and we look at this block, right? We're looking at this block. And we do, what is it? WE help. Help WE. Oh, help WE. Forgot what WE is like M. These aren't going to be in alphabetical order because, of course, they're not. WE. Generate multi-block code. GMC. Okay. Slash WEGMC. Okay. Code written to server main.log. Now, I'm going to have to redo this when I finally get the creosote controller block in. But this will give you an idea of what this does. Okay, so let's look. Let's go back in here. Here. And logs, server main log, I believe it said. There it is. Oh, jeez. The sound too? That's such a tiny. Yeah, my OBS is tiny little window. Sound too, I think. Yeah, sound too. I have a ton, like a ton of videos and streams on modding Vintage Story, like a ton. If you just go and look at my back catalog of both videos and streams, you know, going back several years, like it's just, or just search, you know, do a search for like flexible and then vintage modding or something. Like I have a couple of different playlists on how to mod. Like the rock sniffer mod, I did that entire mod on camera in one stream. The entire thing. The JSON, the shape, the code, the whole thing was all done in one shot, covering all of the aspects of adding that. So I want to copy multi-block structure. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to do new text file, and I'm just going to paste this in here. Right? All right. So now I want to see. I just want to see if this thing can output. Oh Jesus, that was unexpected. Thanks, game. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 9, right? 9 by 9. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16. That's 16, 9 by 9 by 16 right there. So we're gonna do that. And we're going to grab this and we're gonna say you to you. What? No. There. Okay. I want to see if it actually outputs that. And so let's find another block type. Oh, I hit E. I want some different blocks in here just as a test. So if we do like machine block, let's see, MV motor. Oh, we need to redo the, I think he said that these were not working. So let's put a fluid pipe in there and maybe an item pipe, right? So let's put this in there. I probably want to do, yeah, this is not what I want. Okay. Let's do a couple machine blocks. Right? And then put like pipe. Because these are blocks, believe it or not. Those are blocks. And then maybe like an item pipe. And this is just to simulate like things and stuff. Like this is not supposed to be like super legit. But this block, yeah, whatever. I want this block to be aquatic. Interesting. Items. Terrain. Is it already getting dark? Jesus, I must have added too much time. Okay. So, we're going to run this command again. Now, let's exit. Quit and open code. And it did. It did output it. Excellent. There's no errors. Multi-block centered around there. You can see, like, this is why I have to offset the X and Z because of how the world generate, how the things generate. 0, 0 is not spawn. 0, 0 is way up in the northwest corner. Machinery, block, tin, bronze, item, fluid, pipe, blah, blah, blah. Excellent. Okay. So that command is able to output the schematic of a large multi-block. That is very, very good. That way I don't have to do any sort of customized anything with that. It will output what it is. Now, I don't know what happens. I doubt it would. I doubt this would work. Um, if I tried to use the multi-block, if I tried to use the base game multi-block, because the Y value here, right? I'm offsetting this by a 15. Well, the base game only supports like 6. So anyway, um but this encodes all the offsets too, which is nice. And it says, okay, this block is there, this block is there, and so I can take that block index and offsets and I can map that to specific multi-block code, and I can repurpose a lot of the base game multi-block system on that and just expand its capabilities and tweak it a little bit, because I'm not encoding the offset. This dot offset, right? This is encoding this offset based on my encoded values of my code, right? This dot variant of dx, right? So this is pulling that dx value. It's replacing n with a dash. It's replacing p with nothing. Dot to int. So it's we'd have to pull that block back up again. Multi-block. So n is turning into a dash. P is turning into nothing. Kind of weird. Dot replace n with a dash. Dot replace p with nothing. Dot to int. That what is it to inting? String util. String text. Dot replace p. Oh, so the p. So this would be multi-block dash monolithic. I'm not really sure why that exists. Like I really don't know why they have a type in there, because it's why have a type and only have one type? Like what's the purpose of having only one type? It's but and so it'd be multi-block dash monolithic dash 2. Only if I don't really know why replace n with a dash. So if it is n, which means it's down 1 or down 2, because between code and your types, each type is a dash. So multi-block dash monolithic dash n2 dash p1 dash p2, right? That would be the code, and then the offset would have dash dash in there. That would not. I'm not really sure. Hmm. Not really sure why they would. Dot to int. So the x variable is just looking at this variant. Okay, So it'd be multi-block dash monolithic, and then the actual int of this would be the variant of dx, right? Oh, I know why. It's negative n. Replace n with negative. That it's not a dash for the code. It's a negative value because you're going down. 000 is the center of the 5 by 6 by 5. Well, center, the 6 is a little bit. So -2, and that's where your 2int is. So it's saying, hey, positive, just eliminate p, right? And then turn that into an int. Or negative, it's -2, -1. So your dx, that's the encode. Okay. My brain was just going wild there. So -2, -1, or 0. That's your 2int. +1, +2. That's your offsets in your multi-block. And this is why we can't really use this system for a new multi-block system that could be way, way bigger, because it takes 150 possible variants of the block and it makes it 1,200, 1,300 variants. And it's just like the game generates that many blocks. When you have a lot of variants like this, it just generates all those. Now, I don't know what the benefit is of these, but I would imagine block entities, really simple block entities don't really hurt the engine all that much, especially if they don't need to tick. If our dummy block entities aren't ticking, if they don't need to tick, then it just doesn't. I don't know how much weight it adds. But this offset value, right? This offset value, instead of being encoded in the name of the block, we are encoding it in the block entity of the dummy. So block entity of the dummy is where the offset is. So when we generate the block entities inside the initialize here, when we swap the block, we are going to need to be able to set the offset to the core, right? This offset is to the core. Offset of this block from the core of the multi-block, right? So we can take that position offset and then basically add it to this position, and that's the core. So like walking up to the machine and right clicking. What you're actually right clicking is the dummy block. That's what you're right clicking. The dummy block doesn't have a UI. It's like, I'm a dummy block. I don't do anything. It needs to know where the core is. And so what it does is the game knows the block position you right click on. It knows that. So it passes in the block position and says, hey, what offset are you? Right? And this will call and say, okay, what offset is this? It will pull that block entity, it will pull that offset, and then it will pass that event to the core. And then the core will respond and say, hey, here's the UI. So that's kind of how that feature is supposed to work. Okay, I don't think I need this anymore. Handbook exclude. Yeah, see, it's excluding them from the handbook. Let's do. Say, this is just verifying. I don't need that code. This is nice. It doesn't realize it's JSON, which is why it's giving errors, but that's fine. So it is what it is. And this just encodes this is the multi-block of the cementation furnace. So that's how that's defined. So I think what we can do with this, right, is somehow add our own code to this, right? We have block numbers, and that maps to this W. We're going to need a separate one for colors. We need a colors for each of these blocks, or like what is how should we do this? Do we define just a list of colors, like X number of colors in a config value, right? Because I can add a specific config to the multi-block system because it's a separate mod. One of the reasons for that is when it's a separate mod, it could be more easily extracted and made into an API if the need arises. So having a separate config value for the multi-block system, we can define colors, right? And you just define a list of colors. And then, it just maps number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and it just goes down the block numbers and it says, hey, what block number are you? And it's like this block number maps to this color, right? Now, if the color doesn't exist for that number, let's say we have 10 colors and somebody has a multi-block down the road, somebody creates a multi-block with 11 blocks. How do you handle it? Do you roll it over to the next color or to the first color? Or do you throw an error and say, I don't know what color to use right here? Do you default it to a color, right? Because the handbook then has to know those colors. It has to be able to map those colors. I don't know. I don't know how many easily identifiable colors we can come up with. Obviously, there's the base ones: purple, red, blue, yellow, green, orange, pink, white. I think would be maybe one you could use for something. So it's not a lot, and then I don't know. I don't know how we could do that. Hmm, yeah. Uh so multi-block, and then we're gonna want if we go the config route because having a config with all the colors defined in it, um, would help. Uh, because then I don't know. I don't know how to do like how would we do this? I don't know the best course of action for this. Layered block. Yeah. Yeah, it can't be static. Oh, I wish it could be. It could be static if we pass in the API, then it could be static. But um, yeah. So while we're here, let's take a look at. Let's close that. I want to kind of do a once over, or at least maybe a twice over. Yeah, you put these in LV. These were intended to be in the MV tier, but right now the MV doesn't have any wiring support. Oh, it looks like you got the behaviors by type. Okay. BELVEK, electric kinetic. I would have done mechanical just because the base game is all mechanical. Everything is referenced to be mechanical, but whatever. Can extract, can receive, entity behaviors by type. UVEC motor and then alternator. Good. I'm glad to see he got this all working. There is the electric motor behavior, electric kinetic gen behavior. And then they're all MP base. Okay. But this isn't triggered because these specific cases, I think. Although yeah, it probably adds this one too. So entity behaviors, it adds, no, I don't know how the game handles that. I think it's this one and then it leaves, but I don't really know. Attributes, all of these are done. Power tier LV. We can change the tiers and stuff when I get the MV stuff up and running, as well as the transformers. Okay, so this looks good. And I think he got the animations working. Let's. None of the recipes are in yet. So yeah, let's see. It will initialize that new mod system, but it won't do anything. Hopefully it doesn't error because I'm missing. I don't think I'm missing anything in it, but yeah, it's not missing anything. I'm add 4. There we go. I don't know. Is it morning? I don't have no idea. Okay, so basically, let's hit E. Oh, super lag. Let's put all the gubbins away that we don't. I have food because even in creative, you take food. Which is kind of crazy. Okay, so vintage engineering, we have electric motor and we're gonna have to look to see why electric alternator north. Mechanics. Let's do a large wooden gear. And a bunch of these, and a bunch of these, as well as a auto creative motor. Okay, there. So that is the alternator. So we can put that there, and this. And he has a little connection there, which is awesome. Let's do a relay. Oh, yeah. Hitting everything is relay. LV relay. Connect that up to there. Okay. And then we want a battery. Oh Lord. um oh yeah, creative mode is just not ideal. Okay. Okay. Why you have to eat in creative mode, I do not know. So there's the battery. There is the alternator. And he said that the if you have an alternator and a generator or a motor running at the same time on the same system, you'll have a slight net loss of power. All right, I need to like select a different thing here so it's not so crazy. You can see there's a little bit of power going in. Not a lot. And we have a little, it's rotating. Oh, excellent work. Excellent work. Okay, so I want to grab one of these. And we are going to grab a motor. This has to be facing north. Not sure. Well, that is. Why did that? That was weird. So the motor, these really should be different. Different looking. Let's do that. I'm not sure why that first one was like so derpy. Okay. So this is probably, yeah, this used all of that power. So if we take that and we put it there, and then we take gearing this up is going to be tough. If we take one of these and we put can I put these upside or I never I never have enough blocks in my I never have enough of these. Let's go here. Can I put this vertical? I cannot. Okay. trying to think of how to gear ratio this. If I do it this way, it's literally going to be no different. I don't do a lot with gear ratioing in this. I think what I'm going to need to do is go above, put this, put that, put that. Okay, and then do that. Really? One ratio was enough to destroy it? Sleeping with 23 power. Why? I don't think I can do another one of these. Yeah, I can't do another one of those. Okay. I see how it is. A better way of doing this would be if I wanted to ratio this. This thing stopped. Yeah. There's definitely some bugs with this. Why? Oh, why is this? Come on. There, 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 there. Like, how much actual power do you need for this thing to actually run? So don't give me that sound. This is 7 100% power creative rotors. To run this thing. With one, it's just one ratio up. That's it. Like, can I, if I make one of these 10%, like, let's see at what point it stops. Oh, it's, ooh. Yeah. So, with this running, what I can do is go in here. Block entity. Block entity. Block entity. How do you use that? There we go. Jeez. I can actually think now. We are on the alternator. So this is B. Electric kinetic gen behavior. Okay, where's that at? Electric motor. Electric kinetic alternator. Oh, you didn't. Oh, Jesus. Never, ever, ever put multiple classes in. Oh, man. No wonder I can't find it. Produce power. Network dot speed 0.12, geared ratio 5.5. So speed would be a pretty tiny amount. So let's do F10. 0.6667, 6667, etc., etc. Okay. Is less than or equal to max speed, which is true. Speed divided by, okay, float power. 17. What's Imax? How? There's too much to put ER on there? We gotta abbreviate everything! um,
Well, of course, people might actually understand us if we don't.
you couldn't have used ER? You couldn't have just ER, power. I understand what it is, but okay, gate resistance. I'm still not 100% sure what this does, but speed is it? I really don't know what speed is. And geared ratio. Float speed times geared ratio. If this is definitely not an RPM. Network.speed. Power give equals pow return pow. Okay, where does this go after this? Power made. On like every one of my machines, like everything in my game, this is called on sim tick. Anyway, okay, uncommon tick, consume power, which is generator, electric power equals power per tick. This would be power per second. Oh no, that is, well, yeah, technically it is a tick, because it's delta time is the tick. Current power. Power made equals produced power. So that's 17. Electric power plus equals. That's right. So that's plus 17. Current power. Let me put a thing there. And hit F5. And we are going to take that breakpoint away. Now we're going to hit here. This is the motor side. The power per tick. Current power equals 0. So gen behavior.consume power per tick, which is 10.9 if we go into that. Why is this power? This is I think this is why the, well, where is this actually altering? Torque. Yeah, we need to not abbreviate every little thing. This is confusing. Um, where does the behavior? Where's the electric behavior? Get torque. Because this consume power, I'm not really sure where's it actually reducing. Would that be in the dummy? Um, okay. Gen behavior, consume power, and then I don't know why he's got it in two different places. This this is where the like the behavior. Hmm. Hmm. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, this is gonna. I think we can look at how to make these. Um. Like, you see how these are all split up by. Uh. Like, there should just be one list for each one of these. Sort of like my relays, right? The relays you can place on any block face. Jeez, that was a fast sunset. So yeah, let's look at that. That would be in JSON. Um, and it would be under attributes. Where is it? Handbook. Group by. Okay. I just need to look at one of my just arbitrary. Horizontal orientatable. These do not need to be arrays. This is probably why this is not working. Maybe. Um, just as a test. Doing that. Name. Okay, so the behaviors is an array. Okay. So if we just wrap this in, nope, wrong bracket, like that, horizontal orientatable. Okay. Attributes. You can actually do star dash north. Group by. Hmm. I think we're going to have to. Why is there a comma?
I'm gonna head out, Buggy.
All right.
Good luck with the rest of the stream. Looks like it's been doing pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting close to the end here. ELE motor dash star. Handbook. God, I don't know how. Sometimes I just not sure on the syntax. Um, but then we take like that. Think. Because attributes by type, we're taking that type, and then this is the attributes. Handbook. Exclude by type. Group by. I don't think you need a group by on there, but it is what it is. And then we take this whole thing, copy it, comma, that. This is going to be alternator. Don't think I need a group by because it should just be one thing. This might work. Maybe. Attributes. Player nodes. And then shape by type. Yeah, is just the axle. So that's why when you look at in the yeah, I don't know how his custom rendering thing is working. Um, I haven't. I would need to dig into that a little bit. Attributes by type. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm just trying to get the handbook to, or at least the placement of the thing to. Oh, really? Oh no, it's the handbook. Uh, Motor. Electric motor. But if I have like, if I'm looking, this is looking north, okay, west, south, okay, that works. What about the alternator? Excellent. I'm gonna need. Oh, handbook. Alternator. I need to limit the creative inventory. All of the math and stuff around this can all be tuned and tweaked, but you know, same with like the formulas and stuff. But if I break, see, this is not using power, or it's using it like really slow, but it should be like at 100 power per second. This thing should be losing power within 8 seconds. It should be 8 or 9 seconds. So there's a bug with it. And this thing should be, it's sleeping right now, but it's not really sleeping. It would sleep if it was full of power. But even this sleeping, you would still have it turn. You wouldn't want it to lock that up. So yeah, there's definitely some bugs. So how do I manage the creative inventory? I know that there is a... what is it? There it is, creative inventory. Do I have one of those here? I do. Why does this not work? It's spelled right. Everything there is good. DLVEK star.north. So metal press north star.north. That might be why. This just needed that. Because if you have the north one, is north is always the default. Anytime you're going to define a multi-block, anytime you're going to do that, always do so facing north. Always design it facing north, and that's going to be the default orientation. Everything else is then rotated around based on this shape I type, right? West is 90 degrees, south is 180, and then east is 270 degrees. Or you could also look at this as minus 90 degrees. It's counterclockwise, obviously, and it's kind of counterintuitive to how I would want it to be, because usually when people talk about directions, it's northeast, southwest, which is clockwise, right? Northeast, southwest. The game is northwest, southeast. For some reason, I don't know why, everything's based on that. I'm not sure. At least the angle of rotation, positive, goes counterclockwise. There's probably a technical reason for that, but I do not know. Okay. So one last little test to see if that actually. I usually don't test in creative mode. It's just not my favorite. Obviously, it like lags when you try to open the inventory or grab something. It's having to pull 10,000 items. Especially if you try to search, it's just slow. And I don't even have really any mods installed that add variants of things. So it's slow in general. Right? Hitting E is like, there we go. And there they are, right here. The other thing we'd probably want to do is somehow set the shape, the GUI shape to be, well, yeah, these are the exact same shape. So we would have to have a different shape for the motor to the alternator. I'm not sure if you could do that. I'm not a 3D shape guy, so this is the number one area I need help with the mod. Right? Is shapes. Um, is there a way we can do WE selection? Let's do this. Clear. Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely going to need to tune the values as well as fix the bug. It's like, oh, the power has gone down, but it's supposed to be rated power per second, so I'm gonna need to just go over it with a fine-tooth comb and figure out how that all works, as well as refactor. Which is why we have a dev branch now, so I can do all of that and not mess around with the legit branch. So yeah, fun times there. So a couple things to fix here and there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to sort of pick apart his generator block.code.path that contains. Good job there. You could also do it on attributes or something. The attributes. If somebody doesn't name it alternator, you could do it based on the electric attributes. This entity behaviors, the behavior properties is where it would be. Can extract power would be the properties of the electric behavior. This right here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go over this a little bit. And I can do I work a lot faster if I'm not narrating what I'm doing, but yeah, this document is gonna help guide the features. You know, I'll tick them off one at a time as I go through. But my next job is to make the creosote oven block a custom type, right? The UI can be like, this is why I made the creosote oven the way I did, because the UI is the same. I don't need to do another UI. The block shape can be used as the final block shape. It's just the method that you build it, right? The method that you get to it is going to be different. And as I also need to do some recipes for the motor and the alternator, and I need to get the process for those more polished and ready to go. And I know that there's a way. To use to set a different shape for like the GUI. I just can't remember the tag and the syntax. But I'll have to just do a search for that and just see. But anyway, that is the beginning. That is we just dipped our toe a little bit into the beginning of the multi-block system, and I just kind of wanted to cover in the broad strokes of what the system will entail and a little bit of the work involved and as far as getting the API started. But there's much more to do. There's a lot more to do. So yeah, that is going to do it for the stream today, everybody. I thank you all for coming by, and anybody who has been supporting the mod, anybody who's been supporting me, all my patrons, all the channel members. Thank you very much. It is big motivation to keep going on this mod. This mod has been a huge amount of work, and just kind of reinventing or inventing all these systems has been it's been very much a learning experience for me. And doing it with a little bit of support and a lot of support from everybody has been very, very helpful. So a huge thank you to all my patrons and all my channel members, and anybody else out there who has donated to the project. Very much helpful. So yeah, thank you all for coming by. Please hit that like button if you've enjoyed yourself today. If you learned anything, or in general, whatever. And then Saturday is the next stream. We're doing just multiplayer. We're doing relaxed farming sim content. It's just sort of relaxed. I can't stream the same game I'm modding, right? I could not be playing Vintage Story while I'm trying to mod Vintage. I just get burned out. It's just too much of just my brain just fritzes out when I try to do that. So I kind of have to stream a different game on Saturdays than what I'm actually modding at the time. So anyway, yeah, we're just kind of relaxed. I'm assuming we're possibly, maybe gonna dive into near the end of the month or the in July, maybe probably do another stream series on 7 Days to Die when that expansion comes out. I it is what it is, but hopefully it's going to be good. The team went from taking 13 years to put version 1 out to taking 10 months to put version 2 out. So it's kind of I don't really know. But if you want to join us on those streams, if you want to play with everybody else, patrons and channel members on, I don't even remember what tier it was, but there's a tier and above, for members or patrons that can join on the multiplayer game. So looking forward to that. And yeah, we'll probably eventually also play Foundry whenever they get their final balance done on the new update. So, multiplayer games coming up. If you're not a farming sim game, we do cover a lot of different kinds of games. So, multiplayer games are fun and enjoyable when there's a lot of people that are enjoying themselves. So just consider that as a perk of supporting the channel. So anyway, I thank you all for coming by. Hope to see everybody back here on Saturday. And yeah, have a great rest of the week, everybody.